Hey, what's up, y'all? Will here at Schedulefly. Brought to you by Schedulefly, restaurant employee scheduling software. Super simple software, legendary customer service. If you're on Excel or pencil and paper, on the other side of that, if you're on an expensive employee scheduling software that's got tons of features and bells and whistles you don't need and don't use, check out Schedulefly. Schedulefly.com, 30-day free trial. You'll love using it. It'll make life easier, and we'll take great care of you. Also brought to you by our two sponsors, Pop Menu and Kickfin, and you'll hear more about them very soon. But in the meantime, let's talk about Eric Cacciatore. Now, Eric's not a restaurant owner, and he's not the CEO of a restaurant tech company. No, Eric is the owner, founder of Restaurant Unstoppable, the #1 hospitality podcast in the world. I've known Eric a long time. I was on his podcast one of the earlier, probably in the first year, and he and I had an opportunity recently in Raleigh to sit down across from each other, and I interviewed him, and then we turned the mics around, and he interviewed me. So you can hear that on his podcast when that episode comes up. Wow, this is cool. I'm so proud of Eric. It's been amazing to watch him start with, just hustling, and he's still hustling, and that's part of his ethos. It's part of what he does. He shows up and he grinds, and he's been doing it for a long time. He's built this business out of an idea and a passion for providing content that educates and inspires restaurateurs all over the world and helps push the industry to new places that it's never been. And I just love talking to Eric. He is a big thinker. He's a visionary. He cares so deeply about this industry, and I highly, highly recommend listening to this episode. I highly recommend following his podcast, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to our podcast. You're going to really enjoy this conversation. Before we get to it, let's hear a quick word from our partner at Schedulefly and our lead podcast sponsor, Pop Menu. Pop Menu is, they're a partner of Schedulefly, and we have a lot of happy mutual customers. But Pop Menu is all about making your day easier and your sales bigger. They will simplify your marketing operations, bring in more guests, capture customer data for personalized remarketing to keep them coming back. With one super simple to use platform that integrates with most point of sales like Toast and Square and a number of others, Pop Menu starts with a beautifully designed, easy to update interactive menu that transforms the guest experience online. It includes a brand new website that's optimized for search engines like Google for no additional cost, automated digital marketing, online ordering and waitlisting, and you'll never miss another call with their AI answering solution that costs as little as 47 cents an hour. Check it out. Check out the link in our show notes. There's so much more in Pop Menu. Here's my 2 cents. I've talked to a lot of our mutual customers, and here's what they say about Pop Menu. Great company, great customer service, great product, great results. Check out Pop Menu and check out this episode of Restaurant Owners Uncorked. Thank y'all for listening. See ya. What is up, y'all? Man, I'm so thrilled to have this opportunity. I'm sitting here with Eric Cacciatore, who hosts the Restaurant Unstoppable podcast, the #1 hospitality podcast in the world. I have talked to Eric multiple times over the years for the last decade or so. I remember when Eric started his podcast and just really have enjoyed, watching you take this from this thing you wanted to do and hustling around and trying to make it happen into this really, really cool business and a great brand. You have built a wonderful resource for this industry. You do it with massive amounts of passion and care and thought and intention, and
Thank you.
I'm so thrilled to just so thrilled to be sitting here in person with you.
You're warming me up on the inside. Thank you very much. Well, likewise, man, you're doing great work yourself, and even 10 years into this, Schedulefly, I feel like is still very, what's the word? Just there's this niche you carved out for yourself.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people try to go so huge so soon with technology, and they don't realize that it's something they can swing into over time.
Yeah.
And what I love about Schedulefly is that it's in the reach for everybody. And labor management is just one of those things that if you can systematize that, it's going to be such a load off your shoulders. So, and what you're doing with your podcast, Restaurant Owners on Court, you had the book. The podcast is called Restaurant Owners on Court too, right?
Yep.
I mean, likewise, man. Everything you said.
Well, okay, man. So I remember when you were first getting started. I know we talked. I don't know, like, where in that time frame it was, but it was early on. But just give us your story, man. Like, why?
Right.
What inspired you to do this? And clearly it was something you were meant to do. You're a decade in, but why did you start this?
Getting closer to you.
Yeah.
Bacon in the sun.
Oh, in the sun there. Yeah.
So thank you for asking. Grew up in the restaurant industry. My parents opened a restaurant when I was 3. They had it until I was 13. Ironically, their episode, I just recorded their podcast. They were a guest on the show. They were episode 1,000.
No, well, you hit 1,000.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yep,
I knew you were close. That's fantastic.
So I
dude.
actually just recorded 1,009 with Dave and Dave.
God, that's so awesome.
You're going to be 1,010.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and thank you. And really, I mean, I started the podcast because I grew up in the restaurant industry. I saw my parents just grind so hard, and they were extremely busy, loved, but I saw behind the scenes how much they struggled just to get by, like pay the bills. And I thought to myself, what's going on here? Like, what were my parents doing wrong? Where they're working so much, they're so loved, their lines out the door every weekend, but they still can't pay the bills. And that was really kind of what inspired me to start the podcast, is to create the resource that if it existed when my parents opened their restaurants in the 80s, that they would have been unstoppable.
Yeah.
That was kind of like they were the avatar of the person that I was creating the podcast for. So my mission was just to go talk to the people, the most successful people in the industry, and to share their stories and to pay those stories forward to the greater industry. And I believe that if we can close the knowledge gap on them, if we can make this information available to everyone, regardless of gender, race, belief, whatever, then we can transform the industry. And I think if we transform the industry, second largest industry in the world behind healthcare, we can transform the world.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
A grand vision.
Yeah. It's a little grandiose.
No, but hey, man, that's how you got to think, and you believe it too, and it's true, and it is an industry. I mean, there's so many amazing people in this industry, and they work so freaking hard, and it's hard to, a lot of times, for them to even pop their head up long enough to even listen to a podcast episode, much less try to figure this.
The cool thing about podcasts is that you don't have to pop your head up.
Yeah.
You can keep your head down.
You can keep your head down and just pop your earbuds in.
Yeah,
that's
that's
right.
why I think it's such a powerful tool. It's like, I think the restaurant industry, people were notorious for not doing the work to grow and work on themselves because they were given 80 hours a week to the restaurant.
Yeah.
There was nothing in the tank for them left for themselves. But the cool thing is that audio is the only resource out there where you can learn and do things. Because you're only using one, like you're only listening.
Yeah.
So it's powerful stuff.
Okay, so you have this idea. You want to start this podcast.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So, I had the idea. So there's more story to the story. I grew up in the industry. I always wanted to open my own restaurant. My parents talked me out of it.
Okay.
They said, "Have you learned nothing? We work so hard, so like you don't have to." So they convinced me to go to school. I didn't know a lot about myself. Who does when they're 15, 16, 17 years old?
Yeah, right.
But I always knew that all the pilots I knew in my life were just really cool people. Amazing lifestyle, can travel the world, make good money, have beautiful wives. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, okay.
That's my naive filter when I was a 15-year-old, 16-year-old.
Would have been a good filter at that
lifestyle,
age.
Yeah. It was all about lifestyle for me. So I said to myself, I'm going to be a commercial pilot because I want to be able to make money and travel the world. Not because I'm good at math or, passionate about aviation. The truth is I really had no business as a commercial pilot. I colorblind, dyslexic, ADHD. It's amazing I made it as far as I did, which is a testament to my work ethic.
Yeah.
My willingness to show up. So I resigned. I became a commercial pilot. Age of 26, my frontal lobe fully formed. And I was like, why am I here? Like, this is not me.
Yeah.
You know, like I became self-aware. And I was leaning into all my weaknesses. And I decided to resign from aviation, went back to school for marketing and hospitality. When I went back to school for marketing and hospitality, it was really just because I didn't want to pay for my school loans, because I was paying over like $1,100 a month on my school loans.
Yeah.
So it was crippling. So if I went back to school part-time and took 2 classes at the local community college, I could spend $500 a quarter, you know, or something like that, you know, a lot less
Right.
than what I was paying for my school loans. So I really went back to school just to defer my school loans. I took marketing and hospitality classes. And it was also around this time I discovered podcasts in 2012. And it was actually a professor. Am I allowed to curse?
You can go right ahead, yeah.
So he walks into the room. Never met the guy. This is how he introduces himself. He walks into the room. He just looks around. He writes his name, Professor Mazer, on the whiteboard, turns around, just kind of gives the classroom like a once-over. The first thing that comes out of his mouth, who here listens to podcasts? Not a hand goes up. It's 2012, so it's not like mainstream yet.
Yeah.
And he just kind of lowers his head, you know, like disappointment. Turns around, walks out the door, shuts the door. It's a night class. Looks left, looks right, and screams, "You've got to be fucking kidding me!" And he was outside of the room. And now that I know him, we're friends to this day. Like he's all about shock and awe, you know. Like, and that's how you like deliver a point. He was trying to make a point.
Yeah, right. He got your attention.
Yeah, exactly. So he came back in and he's like, "You were missing out on this incredible opportunity to literally learn whatever it is you're curious about."
Right.
He's like, "Your homework assignment." Like the first thing, the class wasn't even like started yet. He's giving us our first assignment though. It's like, go home, research 3 podcasts under 3 different categories, and come back and tell us what you learned. So my categories were hospitality, entrepreneurism, and marketing. Tons of marketing. I didn't mean to flip you off. tons of entrepreneurial podcasts. Not a single solid hospitality podcast. Not back in 2012. So that was my first clue. Although I wasn't thinking like this yet, but I was looking for that hospitality podcast. So I was listening to all these entrepreneurial and marketing podcasts. Fell in love, and at this time, I thought that I was going to go back to school. I was going to get into sales was the plan. And I wanted to work in the industry, but I was $200,000 in debt from becoming a commercial pilot. And there was no way I was paying off my school loan debt working in restaurants.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, if I can't work in restaurants, I want to work with restaurants. Cause really my passion for the industry is within the people in the industry. Like I love restaurant people. Just the most authentic, genuine,
Yep.
bad boys and girls out there that like to have a good time, you know? So those are my kind of people. So I thought I'd get into wine sales. So at the time I was working at a winery while I was going back to school, and I was the assistant winemaker. So I was just in the cellar by myself all day listening to podcasts at times 2. So, you know, 8-hour shift, 16 hours of audio, just chewing through content, learning about entrepreneurism and marketing. And when you're learning about those things, you grow as a human, especially like entrepreneurism, leadership, personal growth, marketing, how to promote yourself. Like I just started learning so much. And somebody said, if you are looking for something and you can't find it, odds are you're not the only person looking, and there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that was my first like aha moment, because I was looking every week for this hospitality podcast and it wasn't coming out.
Yeah.
So, and then the next quote I heard in a podcast was, if you make your life about helping enough other people achieve what they want, you can achieve anything you want.
Amen. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So like I butchered that a little bit, but that was kind of what I needed to hear. So like I wanted to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the position to open a restaurant, but if I make it my life's purpose to interview people and get knowledge and share that knowledge with people who are in the position, then I could one day use this resource. I could grow the podcast, and it would be my gateway into restaurant ownership.
Gotcha.
It was a little more long-winded than you were probably looking for. Sorry.
No, it's not. It's exactly what I was looking for. I think that's fantastic. So then what did you do? I mean, how did you get your first interview?
Well, I am not technically inclined. So the first year, 2012, was basically dedicated to building a website, learning about the business of podcasting, figuring out my format and all this stuff. I joined a community called Podcasters Paradise. John Lee Dumas was a huge inspiration for me. He was behind Entrepreneur on Fire. I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast.
I'm not, no.
Dude was doing 5 interviews a week. He does 7 now, but like it's crazy. I mean, he does them virtually, and they're only like 30 minutes long. But he was a lot of my inspiration. He's why I have the success quote in the beginning of every episode, because it changed my life. It was those quotes that I heard that changed my life. So anyway, listened to his podcast, joined his community, learned all there was about podcasting, and it just started. And I think when I started, I was doing like 2 and then 3 episodes a week, and I was like, this is hard, you know. So I dialed it back to 2.
Where did you start? Like, where was your first episode?
I started locally. I just started talking to people in my community.
Yeah.
Just kind of practicing. I mean, you're going to be like, every master was once a disaster. If you go back to episode 1 through like 100 of Restaurant Unstoppable, I'm obnoxious. Like, I bring it on too much, dude. Like, I'm like over the top. I dialed it back a lot. Like, I thought I had to be like super energetic all the time.
Yeah.
Like, woo. And the truth is, it's exhausting to keep up that level of energy constantly.
Right.
And it's also not who I am. Like, I am like an energetic person. I get excited, but it's not to maintain that all the time. It's like, over time almost felt disingenuous.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I dialed it back. So I start off excited, and then I bring it to like more of a conversational tone.
So you started in your community, and you were just knocking on doors, just saying, "Hey, can I, like, would you let me tell your
Pretty
story?"
much.
Or
Just, you know, early in my career, like with the podcast, basically the criteria was you needed to have significant industry accolades. You needed to be in business for a minimum of 5 years. And I think, what was the other one? I can't remember. It was so long ago. But basically, I was looking for people that already got, like, the people that you would assume are the most successful because of the media impressed them.
yeah.
Over time, that's kind of changed. I'm more organic now. Like, I let my current guests dictate who I talk to.
Yeah.
I think success recognizes success. Plus, I think some of those media outlets I was looking to are more geared towards the consumer. And I realized that the restaurants I was interviewing weren't profitable. They just were sexy.
Yeah,
You
right.
know?
Absolutely, dude.
So
yeah.
like, I think there's a real issue there that
Yeah.
like the you know, the Thrillists, the James Beard, the Food and Wines of the world are all about the food, but they're not paying attention to what's happening behind the doors. You know, are you profitable?
Yeah. Food and branding.
Food, branding, just the all the other stuff. So you like to cook? Great. I hope so. You're opening a restaurant. Can you do all the other stuff?
Yeah.
And it's all the other stuff that's going to make you. I mean, if you can be a great cook and be busy, but then you're going to be like my parents, who are just busy and running around all the time and slaves to their business because they don't know how to scale. They don't know how to
Right.
build systems and processes. They don't know how to develop a culture. Although I will say they had a great culture, but they didn't know how to teach and like cement the culture. You know,
Yeah.
they were very hardworking people who took care of their employees and loved their guests, and it was a two-way street. But they didn't have any of those lessons. So I kind of started, you know, like I said, like I started using my guests as inspiration. Who do you respect and admire? Who is somebody, if I got them on the show, knowing what you know about their business, you'd want to like appear into like the behind the scenes of that business, how they run their business. Who is that person for you?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the evolution as far as how I find guests.
And have all of your episodes been, you've done them all in person?
Not all. I think it was around the 2017, 18, 5 years ago, I started committing to in person.
Okay.
So
You were doing them over the phone or
Zoom.
You were doing it. Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as I could basically be full time on the podcast,
Yeah.
and could like live out of my car, which is what I did for the first 2 years, essentially. Like, I would use the podcast and be like, hey, like I want to take the podcast on the road, but like I need a crash pad. Like, so if you're willing to host me, I'll come to your city and I'll interview people. I should probably start doing that again.
That's what, man, you hooked me when you told me that story.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this, because it's just, man, Eric, I just love this is like the classic entrepreneurial story.
You find a way.
Like, yeah, like you said, like you saw a need, you know, somebody else probably has the same need. Nobody was doing it. And you figured it out. Like, you hustled, and you have incredible work ethic and discipline, clearly. But it really, I'm always hooked by entrepreneurs who bootstrap and just hustle and grind and figure it out. It's such a wonderful way to build a business. I mean, there's nothing wrong with like venture capital and that path and everything else, but I've always just kind of gravitated. I mean, it's what 2 businesses I've been a part of have been, just kind of like
start where you can.
Yeah, and just figure it out. Like, you know,
it never ends, dude. Like, you know, like now my whole thing is the video. Like,
yeah,
it's a whole world of just like I don't have any clue of what I'm doing, but you start. And I recently had somebody, Steven, his last name is escaping me. He's the author of The Practicing Mind, Fully Engaged, and something about thoughtfulness. I can't remember the last title, but it's all about basically just mindset.
Yeah.
And just being like that narrative you tell yourself. Like you're not your beliefs. You're not your feelings. You're not your emotions.
Yeah.
And learning to like disconnect yourself from your emotions and your fears, and like are you your emotions or are you will? You know, like your will. You're not your emotions, and like recognizing to divide so you can overpower that stuff. And like we get afraid of what we don't know, and that stops us from ever starting. But like you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and you practice and you keep showing up. When you first swing a golf club, you're going to be horrible, but if you keep swinging, and you get help and you get a coach, and you practice, eventually you're good. So it's like that mindset of like, don't let not being good stop you from starting, because everyone who's a master was once a disaster. You know.
Oh, I talk to my kids about that all the time, dude. I got 3 kids, and that's such a, you know, that's such a great life lesson. All right, y'all. Time for a little mid-episode break to talk about Kickfin, our mid-episode sponsor and a great business. Thousands of restaurants, bars, and breweries use Kickfin to tip out their employees instantly, no cash required. With Kickfin, tips go directly to your employer's bank of choice the second their shift ends. It's a really simple solution to a really big problem, because if you're still paying out credit card tips in cash, it's costing you. Time-consuming bank runs and cash counting take managers away from work that matters. Cash is hard to track, which leads to accounting headaches, and it creates the perfect opportunity for theft, human error, and compliance issues. Bottom line, there's never been an instant, secure way to pay out tips until Kickfin. It's an easy-to-use software that sends real-time cashless tip payouts straight to your employees' bank accounts 24/7, 365. Kickfin gives managers hours back in their day, makes reporting a breeze, and protects your business from risk. Most importantly, employees love it. Restaurants can have Kickfin up and running overnight. Employees can enroll in seconds. No hardware, no contracts, no setup fees. Visit kickfin.com for a personalized demo and see how restaurants across the country are digitizing tips with Kickfin. That's what they like me to read. I will tell you this. I know the folks at Kickfin. Check out the episode with Brian Hassan, the co-CEO of Kickfin, was on here on the podcast. Great people, love what they do. They treat their customers well. We have mutual customers that love the product and love the way they, the relationship they have with Kickfin. So check it out, link in the show notes, and let's check out the rest of this episode. Well, okay, so 1,009, dude.
Yeah.
Amazing. What are some of the big things you learned that you didn't know? Like, you saw your parents, you saw what they did, you saw the life that they had, the lifestyle they lived, the hours they worked. You knew you wanted to find best practices and learn from the best. Like, what are some of the big things that you've learned as you, and I guess I want to ask, like, with that, are we continuing on this journey of owning our own restaurant one day?
I mean, have I been scared straight? A little bit. But, you know, it's weird. Like, I still want to open a restaurant, but the way I want to go about doing it has completely changed. And I'm aware enough about myself and aware enough about the industry through all my conversations to know if I would be a good restaurateur. And I think I would be if I had the right team. Excuse me. I'm not attention to detail oriented. I'm not good with system and process. I'm a 100% why guy. I live in the clouds. You know, I'm a dreamer. I'm a visionary. I see what's possible, but I need help doing it.
Yeah.
But I think I'm also really good at attracting onto myself the people. I'm good at bringing people together.
Right.
So in that sense, I think I could be a good restaurateur, because I think the best restaurateurs are just amazing team builders.
Yeah.
They create opportunity for other people. They say,
Yeah.
hey, you're really good at this, and I have a need for what you're good at, and I can pay you and give you a career doing what it is you're meant to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just having that mindset. It's about everybody else. So to kind of backpedal a little bit, the lessons I learned when the first couple hundred, it was, systems, processes, procedures. Culture is really important. Like the obvious stuff that like most restaurateurs know today. But now it's a matter of, I think it's more understanding relationships and people and how people work. Because I think business is all about relationships. It's literally a company.
Yeah.
It's in the word.
Yeah.
It's the company you keep. It's the people you surround yourself with. So just the more you learn about people, how we tick, evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology, anthropology, and like you really dig deep into like, why are we the way we are? And how do you make it about everybody else? When you figure out how other people tick, it's just a matter of like, like what motivates them? How can where's like that Venn diagram of I need help and I can give you help, trying to find those win-win situations.
Do you read a lot of psychology or listen to a lot of psychology podcasts?
I don't listen to a lot of podcasts anymore. Honestly, my listening has transferred to books. I listen to a lot of books now. So I think one great book that really inspired me is *Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind*.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that book?
Familiar, haven't read it yet, on the list.
So cool. It's just but it's just kind of like it's kind of like my podcast in the sense that like I take someone's story chronologically. But what this author does, I won't even attempt to say his name. It's difficult. He goes back all the way to the cognitive revolution, I believe, which is 2 million years ago or something, like 200,000 years ago. It was like the cognitive revolution. And he takes us through the cognitive revolution and the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution. And he talks about how we, from like an anthropological standpoint, evolved and like why we evolved to be the way we are. And how where we are today isn't necessarily how we evolved to be, 10,000 years ago. So, yeah, I find that's so fascinating. But that's one great book. Any book on emotional intelligence, how the mind works in that regard. One book I just recently finished was The Shallows, which is all about like how the brain develops neural pathways through learning, and how the evolution of scientists and what they've learned about how the brain works and how plastic the brain is, and how like it's literally changing constantly.
Yeah.
It's constantly molding.
Yeah.
When you're practicing, like I was talking about before, like that's what's happening. Like you're molding your brain. You're developing new neural pathways.
Yeah.
And how knowing that and how we kind of like using this, like you probably don't even know this microphone's in front of your face right now because you do it so much that it's just there. It's a part of you. It's an extension of you. It's a tool. Right?
Yeah.
How technology is becoming a tool and an extension of humans, and how neural pathways are changing so that like technology, computers are literally an extension of our brains. Yeah. So that kind of shit. Yeah. Like, that's the kind of stuff that like just gets me going. Yeah. And also scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's
like we're going in a direction right now that's like the opposite of like human. Yeah. And like according to like that book, like we can evolve and change, but is it for the better? Is it
for the better?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's becoming a part of us. It's fast, like really fast.
Like we can our brains can evolve, but I think there's primal parts of our brain. So our brains like are like layered. It's like a layer. Yeah. Like the most primitive part of our brain is at the core. And as our brains evolved, we got more advanced layers added on top. The most advanced layer is the frontal cortex. Yeah. It's the most outer layer. But like the inner layers aren't as they aren't as plastic, So there's certain things that like human needs, like being seen, being valued,
being appreciated. Yeah.
That's hard to do in this world, to be appreciated and to be in a world where we literally don't need each other anymore. And he talks about this in *Sapiens*. So like we used to rely on family and community in religion. Like those are like our pillars of support. Today it's all about market and government. Yeah. And we literally don't need each other anymore. So if you're not needed it's hard to be seen, you know? So it's like we might not have to work another day in our lives because we'll have robots and AI to do all the work, but we're not going to be happy.
No, we're going to be miserable. That's the craziest thing about it. Yeah.
So it's like that kind of stuff. So it's like, what's the future? Like, so my evolution, to come full circle, it went from like, what are the things that my parents didn't know, to it evolved to like more bigger thinking. But now it's more about where are we going?
Yeah.
Like, how can we share what we know? Like, we're learning new shit every week.
Yeah.
There's new information coming out.
Yeah.
And the restaurant industry has been notorious for being late adopters, back of the bell curve.
Right.
How do we bring the industry to the front of the bell curve? Not just like the restaurant bell curve, but like the humanity bell curve. Like, what are we learning, and how do we reverse engineer what we know to be true based off of science, you know? And how do we create restaurants that go with the grain instead of against it? The human grain.
Yeah.
You know?
This is some deep thought for a dude getting ready to start a restaurant, man.
Well, I mean,
no, listen, I am with you 1,000%. You know, it's really interesting because we're moving so far, so fast with AI and with technology, and it's becoming such a part of our lives. But you nailed it. I mean,
I confided in you that I use AI.
Yeah.
There's a place for it.
There is a place for it, but we all...
I don't know how video editors feel about that.
No, right. Well, I mean, you know, it's going to do its thing. One thing that never goes away, like I think of restaurants a lot like maybe McDonald's in a few years has got, you know, equipment that does all the work. And there's maybe a person there that just maintains the equipment. But it's just all about quick process, on one end. But on the other end, what we will never not need is to feel welcomed and appreciated and cared for. That's what hospitality is. It's welcoming people into our home. And restaurants, this is what I love about this. This industry is never going away. We're always going to want to have good, well-run, thoughtful restaurants that hopefully have people running them that aren't burned out because they're working 80 hours a week, but people that are learning from like Dave and Dave, who you just had on, about, you know, building a cultural foundation that allows people to grow and people to thrive and people to find the autonomy and the mastery and the purpose they need in their lives so that they can then make life great for the guests, and, you know, and so that the people that own those restaurants do understand the culture and how to scale it and how they can go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 10 and have a really enjoyable life and make good margins. And it's possible. It's possible to do. It's not easy to do. I used to think I wanted to own a restaurant. I will be your customer, man. I
still don't. I don't want to be an operator. You know, like, and I think the way that I see myself is I feel like I haven't even begun with Restaurant Unstoppable. Like the goals I had for myself for Restaurant Unstoppable, I haven't achieved half of them. Yeah, and I do see that I think that my pathway to success is greater if I lean into Restaurant Unstoppable and grow that, and then have that be a way to, you know, when my cup overflows, how do I create opportunity for other people, and how do I, I want to see the Restaurant Unstoppable network on TV. I want to see shit like you've got, man, you have I know, you know, like there's just so freaking, like you've started 1,000 episodes. It's amazing. But like going around the world and talking to and filming and sharing stories of, that's kind of the thought. That's you know, dude, so like I'm a media company. Yes. And how do I start getting strategic and finding the people that I can partner with to help take what I've created to the next level. And I also see my podcast being a way to share the media within my organization. And like the vision for like my restaurant group is, hey, I'm not the expert. I'm not the talent. You're the talent. We're going to basically take the lessons we learned through Restaurant Unstoppable and let you, the operators, implement these lessons, and then share open book management with what we're doing in our business with the world. Yeah. I mean, that's what I would like to do. Something like along those lines, you know.
I love it, dude. Yeah. What an amazing vision.
Thank
So okay, well, you've passed your amazing milestone. You've got, we mentioned before when we were walking across the street, you've got a road trip coming up.
Yeah. It's the goal. It's a lofty goal. 3 months on the road. So going into the future, I want the podcast to be more journalistic. So the thought process is, if I have 3 or 4 leads in the city, those leads can easily become 16.
Mm-hmm.
But you just got to show up in the city and start talking.
Yeah.
And then doors will start to open.
Yeah.
And then there's a narrative there.
Yeah.
And it's a way to kind of walk the walk. I've been talking the talk, but like if I truly want to be journalistic, I think I have to go open-ended and cover a region and like kind of spend 2 weeks in a city, get the interviews, the leads that I have, and then be like, hey, like all the new leads that I get, I'll be back in a couple of weeks, and just kind of toggle between 2 cities, do the same thing. And then once I feel like I've exhausted those leads, then you go to the next 2 cities.
Yeah.
You toggle back and forth, 2-hour, 3-hour drive in between. And then kind of just let the industry decide who should be made an example of. So I want to do the Southwest is my goal.
Southwest is your goal. And you drive. I love this, man. You still drive.
Yeah. I mean, I carry a lot of stuff.
You do carry a lot of stuff.
It's kind of a pain in the ass to fly with, man. I'm not going to lie. I literally can't carry the stuff that I show up with. I mean, they have those like carts and stuff, but I need a crew, and I also save money by driving. If I'm being like, I don't have to worry about getting rental cars.
Yeah.
I lose a day or 2 in transit, but I also get to listen to a couple audiobooks along the way.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And it's nice just to be quiet sometimes in a world where like we're overload. It's nice just to drive with the music off and just be with your thoughts.
So a year and a half ago, my whole family, my family of 5, we left in an RV to drive out and made our way out to Boulder, Colorado. And we, so Dave Query, who you've had on from Big Red F, Dave and Dana have become good friends. And he's like, look, we're going to be in Michigan for the month of August. Bring your family. Our house is yours. I'm like, oh, this is our chance for the RV trip. Well, sparing you all the details, by the time we got to Boulder, other than me, everybody in our family was sick of the RV. And we had a return trip to make. So we negotiated a settlement where I put my wife and kids on a plane and they flew back, and I took the RV over about a 7 or 8 day period, went down to Santa Fe, and then, made my way back across the country by myself. And I got to tell you, dude, there was something it's beautiful. And when you've got nobody, like 5 people in an RV, one thing, but when you're by yourself, you're like, I'm on my own time frame. Yeah. You're just kind of driving. And
so that's the goal, is I want to get a van. Maybe
I was going to ask if you got like a Sprinter van or something like that.
I would love to. It's not in the budget yet, man.
Yeah.
Like, the podcast is doing well. Like I'm a full-time podcaster.
Yeah. It's freaking amazing.
It pays
dude.
the bills, but I'm not rich. You know? And those RVs are upwards of 100,000.
Yeah.
Or those are the Class B RV, the Sprinter vans.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe a couple years away, but just keep showing up. Everything I've ever wanted, for the most part, has come true.
Yeah.
So I just gotta learn to set my bar a little higher.
I love you, bro. You're gonna keep doing it. I love following this, man. I hope to have you back on a couple more years. And
my dream car was a Honda Fit.
Fit.
I'm saying I got that.
Yeah. You
traded that one in.
Look, I want to talk about one or two more quick things. Because one of the things that I'm really interested in, I'm very interested in culture. I love talking to Dave Nitzel this morning about culture, but this gets into a little bit of more of the psychology of, okay, like this industry for so long has been a real grind. It will chew you up and spit you out. It is very hard for a lot of people to maintain, a good balanced life in this industry. But it's starting to change, and the industry's starting to recognize where we need to make this something that is a true viable career for anybody that wants to be in it, not just a like stopover place for most people and then for the ones that are really in it. But like, if you really want to be in this industry, here's your career path. And that's Part of that is people have left the industry because, there's like the work hard, play hard thing. So there's substance abuse issues that come along with this. There's been not a lot of great benefits in the past. So like, hey, I need a real job now because I need 401k or I need health insurance. And now you're seeing more of these types of resources where mental health, physical health, financial health, like restaurateurs are really starting to incorporate this into. At least I'm hearing that conversation more. Is that something you're also hearing a lot about?
Yeah, for sure. I think what happened, something special happened in 2007 with the iPhone, and information just started to spread.
Yeah.
And now, I think podcasting was a big part of that. Like people who normally would have their head down working could now throw in some earbuds and like get inspired while they're doing prep.
Yeah.
Information is moving faster than ever before, and it's in more abundance than ever before. So I think that because of that, we're realizing that our business model was broken. The industry was broken. We're an industry full of people who like keep our heads down and do the work and are overly generous.
Yeah.
So we just get it from all angles. We're giving, working, and we are the last beneficiary. And I think what we're starting to realize is that if I want to do more, if I want to give more, I need to give to myself first. I need to make sure, that's that was something you never heard about 15 years ago, but now it's like common knowledge.
Yeah.
You got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And when you take care of yourself, you're able to, work on the business, right? And grow and be more intentional and less reactive. You're creating opportunity for others, not for yourself. And I think there's definitely a change happening right now where, the industry wasn't taken seriously for the longest time because we kind of painted ourselves into a corner as an industry. Like we were just undercutting the guy down the street on prices, and outworking. And you can only do that for so long before you're painted into a corner and you're like, shit, how do we end up here? Well, it's our fault. We did it. But we're starting to realize like we got to treat our businesses, like our restaurants, like real businesses, like real jobs, and we're not being taken seriously because we're not taking ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
We're not taking care of ourselves first. And once we started taking care of ourselves and taking ourselves seriously and treating our little restaurants like big businesses, there's a cultural shift happening now. And I think that's what you're kind of starting to see. It's like it's the knowledge gap is closing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, Eric, I'm so thrilled to have had this opportunity to talk to you today. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. I recommend anybody, please listen to Restaurant Unstoppable. It is an incredible podcast. Eric has poured his life into it for the last decade and has built an amazing business from it. And you have lofty goals, and I love your mantra, man. I love just show up and just keep doing it. And you've achieved everything so far you set out, and you'll keep achieving. And I can't wait to keep following, man. And I'm really, truly thankful that we got to do this in person.
Thank you, Will, man. It was a pleasure to do it, and I can't wait to flip the mic on you.
All right,
now
man.
it's my turn.
All right. See ya. Hey, y'all, before you sign out on this episode, a couple of quick things. Number one, if you listen to us on iTunes, if you could give us a star rating and a comment, it would help so much. Same thing if you're on Spotify, follow us, or any platform that you're on. If you would just do whatever their rating or follow options are. What that does is it tells the algorithms that this content is good and meaningful and valuable, and it'll tell them to put it in front of more people. So thank you for doing that. If you take the second to do that, that'd be so awesome. And also, if your restaurant is either using Excel or you're using some software that's expensive and has a lot of bells and whistles you don't need, or maybe doesn't have great customer service, we'd love to take care of you at ScheduleFly. Simple, easy restaurant employee scheduling software, legendary customer service, 30-day free trial, schedulefly.com. My cell phone number's on the trial sign-up page. Thank you for listening. See ya.